So Marlo just ended Unstable SMP, but not in the way you think. You see, Marlo was the main villain of the Mafia Tomb arc, and now that we know she's actually DangerMario using an AI voice changer, the whole thing is kinda a mess, and honestly I don't know how Parrot is gonna handle this. But before I break down exactly what this means for the series and show you guys the 5 ways Unstable SMP can recover from this situation, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a like on this video because this is genuinely insane. So let me start by explaining who Marlo is in Unstable SMP, because if you haven't watched the series, you might not realize how big of a role she actually played, and dude, it's way more significant than you'd think. Marlo appears as a supporting character and main antagonist in the video titled Finding the Tomb of the Minecraft Mafia, and her role is really important to the story, and her character's backstory is actually emotionally compelling. Like, she joined the Invisible Mafia specifically to protect her best friend who had joined before her, and after the Mafia was defeated, she chose to remain invisible and got the Tomb of the Mafia alone, killing anyone who tried to enter to prevent a huge chain reaction that would kill thousands of players in stasis chambers. And she's framed not as a villain who's just evil, but as someone making really tough choices to protect others even at great personal cost, which honestly makes her a really sympathetic character. And she also has a signature ability where she briefly blinds everyone before she appears or attacks, and the notable thing about her character is that she writes books about her feelings and experiences, like 3 of which have been seen in the series. And when Parrot still reads a diary and shows genuine understanding of a situation, she spares him rather than killing him, which is one of the more emotionally powerful moments of the arc and honestly a really good storytelling beat. But dude, here's where it gets really bad for Unstable SMP, because now we know that every single scene where Marlo speaks contains an AI generated voice that belongs to a fake persona. Like, the emotional weight of those scenes, especially the moments where Marlo's voice sounds sad about her best friend, or the burden of guarding the tomb, was generated by a voice changer operated by DangerMario, a male player pretending to be a girl. So for viewers who connected emotionally with those scenes, or maybe gooned to it, the wind is mad strong today, bruh. This completely changes what they experience, and honestly that kind of ruins the emotional impact when you know it's all fake and the person behind it was running a massive manipulation operation. And Parrot X2 did not knowingly cast DangerMario, like he cast who he believed was Marlo, a well-known female PvP player, but the person who actually performed in those scenes was a male player operating under a fake identity with a software processed voice. And this is a really meaningful distinction for a series where real person authenticity and community trust are important, because the viewers thought they were watching Marlo when they were actually watching DangerMario pretending to be Marlo, and that's honestly really deceptive even if Parrot didn't know. So now let me break down what will likely happen to Unstable SMP going forward, because this is where things get really interesting. First, Parrot's expected response is probably going to be addressing the situation via a pinned comment under the relevant video, rather than making a full response video, and the reasoning makes sense, because the Marlo arc is already complete as a story unit. Like, making a full video about the controversy risks making it bigger, and making Unstable SMP more associated with the drama than the actual content, so a pinned comment allows him to acknowledge what happened without making it worse. And the likely content of such a response would probably be an explanation that he wasn't aware of the full situation at the time of filming, that he filmed with who he understood to be Marlo as a competitive PvP player, and that the storyline itself remains as it was filmed. Like, he's not gonna remove the videos or pretend it didn't happen, he's just gonna acknowledge the situation and move on. And honestly, that's probably his smartest move, because anything else just draws more attention to it. But here's the thing, and this is actually really important. Marlo the Unstable SMP character and Marlo / DangerMario the real person are actually separable. Like, the character exists within the fiction of the series with her own backstory, motivations, and emotional arc, and that character was not created by DangerMario. She was created by the Unstable SMP writing team and brought to life through the series. The person who voiced her was DangerMario, but the character belongs to the story, so in theory the character can survive separately from the real world controversy. And this means the most likely path forward is that Marlo the character remains part of the Unstable SMP lore, but will never appear again as a recurring presence. Like she was always framed as a one-time appearance, and people had consistently said Marlo would not return even during later arcs. I'm looking at you, Wyatt MC. So the real world situation just reinforces what was already the plan, and honestly that makes it easier to handle because they don't have to actively write her out. She was already written out. But dude, now let me tell you about the 5 ways Unstable SMP could handle this situation creatively, because there are actually some really smart options here that could turn this controversy into a storytelling opportunity. And I'm gonna break down each one in detail because I think these are genuinely interesting solutions. So the first way is a law-consistent disappearance, and this is probably the easiest and cleanest option. Since Marlo is the guardian of the tomb and her entire existence in the story is tied to protecting something that has now been breached and discovered, the narrative already provides a natural exit. Like the story could simply establish that Marlo has gone deeper into hiding, retreating further into the tomb, or disappearing entirely now that the mafia's secrets have been partially exposed. And this requires no acknowledgement of real-world events and fits perfectly within the established lore. So it's basically just letting the character fade away naturally without having to explain anything. And honestly, this is probably what's gonna happen because it's the path of least resistance and it works perfectly with the story that's already been told. The second way is to recast or voice-only presence, and this is if future arcs generally require Marlo's character to appear for some reason. Like the series could recast the role using a different voice actor, maybe even a female voice actor this time to avoid the whole controversy, or they could keep Marlo as a purely text-based presence, which actually fits really well, given her established habit of writing books and leaving written communication. So this maintains the character within the story without requiring any further interaction with DangerMario. And also this could work really well if they wanted to bring her back for some specific story reason. Like imagine if Marlo only communicated through books she left behind. That would actually be kinda cool, and it sidesteps the entire voice problem because there's no voice at all. The third way is the best friend plotline as a write-out, and this is probably my favorite option because it's the most emotionally satisfying. The wiki establishes that Marlo has a best friend whose fate and identity remain unknown, like someone she joined the mafia to protect and has always wished to meet again. And this unresolved emotional thread could be used to write Marlo out gracefully, like she finally finds a friend, fulfills her purpose, and chooses to leave the tomb permanently. This would be a narrative resolution that closes her arc with emotional completeness and removes the need for any future appearances. And also that would be a really satisfying ending for the character, because it gives the story a proper conclusion instead of just having her disappear. Like imagine a final book she leaves behind that says she found her best friend and they are leaving together. That would actually be really powerful, and it will give viewers closure on the character even though they know the real world situation is messed up. The fourth way is a subtle fourth wall acknowledgement, and this is a risky option, but it could be really interesting if done right. Like in keeping with how some SMP content creators handle real-world disruptions to their fictional universes. A brief indirect acknowledgement within the story, maybe a piece of written lore or a book Marlo left behind that touches on themes of hidden identity and deception, could serve as both a nod to the real-world situation and a piece of genuinely interesting in-universe writing. And this requires no explicit mention of the controversy and keeps the storytelling intact, so it's basically weaving the real world drama into the fiction in a way that makes sense for the story. Like imagine finding a book where Marlo talks about how she's been hiding her true self for so long and how exhausting it is to maintain a false identity. That would hit different knowing the real world context, but it would also just be good character writing on its own. And the fifth way is the It's Real Me connection, and this is probably the most creative option, because it actually connects to the real world justice of the situation. Marlo dethroned It's Real Me to reach number 1 on MCT's rankings, and given that It's Real Me is now widely recognized as the true legitimate number 1 player, there's a natural storytelling opportunity here. Like imagine an arc where It's Real Me fights for number 1 on Unstable SMP, and there's some acknowledgement that he's the true champion, and Marlo's reign was built on lies. That would actually be really cool, and it would give the community a sense of justice within the story itself. But dude, the bigger question is what this means for Unstable SMP's casting going forward, because the Marlo situation is a really significant case study for how SMP creators approach guest appearances, like the pattern of inviting high-profile players or creators who are currently in the spotlight creates a built-in risk, because if someone is well known enough to add value to the series, they are often well known enough to also be a potential controversy. And the Marlo situation is an extreme version of this risk actually happening. And going forward, the Unstable SMP creative team and similar series will likely be way more careful about competitive players specifically, like a category that had previously been treated as relatively safe compared to drama-prone YouTube personalities. The combination of AI voice changing, fake identity, and years-long manipulation that made up the Marlo situation was completely unheard of. But the fact that there were already cheating accusations at the time of casting suggests more caution could have been smart, even with the information available then. And honestly, I think other SMP creators are gonna be way more careful about who they invite now. And the reality is that existing footage isn't going anywhere, like those videos are staying up, and the story remains as it was filmed. But the context has changed completely. Every scene with Marlo now carries this knowledge that it's actually DangerMario using an AI voice, and that changes the emotional experience for viewers even though the story itself hasn't changed. And honestly, that's probably the saddest part of this whole thing, because the Marlo character was actually really well written and the arc was so good. But now it's all over. My bad, I'm a bit sensitive to that one. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, like which of the 5 options do you think Unstable SMP should use to handle this. And if you made it this far into the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. And if any Unstable SMP members are watching this, feel free to cast me as Marlo. Anyways, goodbye my little meow meows.